Who's your heart beating for? Who's your heart beating for in this life?
Welcome, everyone. So we're back for another episode of Faces of Love, and today we have a new special guest with us. This young lady is a longtime friend of mine, dating back to middle school, and has basically shared her talents with a special community for the last bunch of years, but I'll let her tell her story because she does it far better than I do. Amanda, would you introduce yourself to the folks at home?
My name is Amanda Friedman. I am an executive director of a special needs school in New York City, the Atlas Foundation for Autism. I have been working in the field since 2000. I started off as a teaching assistant, working with autistic children in upstate New York. Found my love of teaching and started to really kind of get into the throes of things, learning about all the different models of education, learning as much as I could about neurodiversity. And as I learned about all these different models of education and administration, I ended up founding my own nonprofit school and community-based organization in 2009 and have been rocking and rolling ever since. It's been a really exciting journey.
Excellent, excellent. So let me ask you this. So you mentioned that your school and a lot of your teaching has been around the autistic community. I'm assuming more children or for adults as well?
Well, really, we kind of run the full gambit. So our school is specifically inclined towards children 7 to 21 years old. We really wanted to focus starting off at 7 so that we utilize a multi-strategic approach. We use elements of relationship-based models, of more formal applied behavioral approaches, environmental approaches. And when children are first diagnosed, a lot of times one model is something that people want to try out. They're first figuring out how to cope with a diagnosis. So bringing in multiple elements can be really overwhelming. So we want to give people a chance to kind of get accustomed to that. And then for kids to be able to kind of get a feel for having some autonomy and likeness, and kids that are a similar age group. And so the school starting off almost like a middle school was really important to us. And going up to 21 felt really good that we could grow with our kids and into young adulthood. But our other programs, our community-based programs, go to any age. So our kids, for our after-school programs, our weekend programs, they can come to us as young as 4 and be with us up to any age.
Okay. So you gave me a lot there, in particular to your school and to that community that you serve. I want to ask you on a more generic level, rather than going just specifically into the foundation and the school that you started. What would you personally consider to be your love mission? How do you contribute love into the world by how you live?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is that love is understanding. And my students and my families are dealing with so many different elements thrown at them, and they're constantly coping with and looking and seeking for balance and centeredness in a world that can seem really topsy-turvy. And right now, I mean, the whole world right now dealing with this coronavirus is upside down, and we're getting a little bit of an understanding of what it feels like for our kids to be coping with a world on pause, or a world that just doesn't seem to be stopping, right? Understanding, well, what's the news going to be today? What's going to be the change that we need to cope with today? What's the new input, right? How am I supposed to find my balance or understand what's coming at me now. And so we are constantly letting go of our kids' challenging behaviors from yesterday and accepting them every morning anew. And sometimes it's not letting go of yesterday. Sometimes it's letting go of what happened 5 minutes before, right? And then sometimes it's celebrating such microscopic victories. It's catching someone being good just by virtue of who they are, noticing them because they don't feel seen, and letting them know that their existence, whether they're verbal or not, whether they're producing academics in a traditional way or not, them being in a room, them showing up is okay. Them not having a challenge for as long as they did and finding a way to cool down faster is a big deal. Dr. Stanley Greenspan, he's the developmental pediatrician who created the DIR floor time model. He said there's no greater feeling than that of being understood. And if you think about our greatest love relationships, if you think about our greatest friendships, when you go to an ice cream truck and somebody gets double Rocky Road and a scoop of peanut butter with cherry sauce, and nobody else has ever gotten the same ice cream scoops in the same order as you. Like, what? You like that too? It's like the most amazing thing in the world. Oh my God, I never knew anybody else like that. I thought I was the only one. So, wow. It's a great feeling.
Both what you love and what you hate are reflections of yourself.
Yes.
And so seeing what your love walk, your love mission, your love journey is, I can't help but wonder. Now, part of this I know, but the folks at home may not. So I'd like to kind of clue them in on where do you think this interest, this passion for creating that balance, that connection, that community, that being understood, being heard, where did that come from? Where in your love journey did that arise in you, and how was that cultivated?
Wow. Whew. I mean, I would love to say that it was by example in my personal life, but I think that I would have to say that it was the opposite, you know. Aside from what's that?
So by a negative example?
In a certain way. On the one hand, I would say that music and literature set the stage for what was my example. Okay. When I believe it was 14 or so, I read the Diary of Anne Frank for the first time. Mm-hmm. And I remember Anne Frank, you know, in the midst of World War II saying, you know, even in the midst of this all, I still believe there is good in the world. And the notion of beauty and life itself, mm-hmm. and the world itself, mm-hmm. being this incredible thing, and being able to fall in love, and being able to notice beautiful things. And then in my field and in my work and in learning about the brain, mm-hmm. which is to me, you know, a great love affair, mm-hmm. and knowing that our neurology and our wiring, one of the things that led me to choose my therapist, mm-hmm. Was the fact that on his website, he said that we have an innate wiring and desire to be the happiest version of ourselves. Our DNA, our truest sense of self actually does want and lean toward our greatest happiness. And so in fact, we actually do have to work hard to be miserable. We just don't necessarily see it, right? But those habits, once those habits are formed, it's very easy to keep the habit of misery, right? But once we choose love and gratitude, that habit is very easy to keep. But it's very difficult to choose and get that started sometimes, right?
So what led you to that choice, if that was not your default?
I think that I saw so many people in my family not choosing it. And I wanted to be the one who would choose unconditional love. And I wanted to be the one who could prove that we did not need to be what we come from, that somebody could break a chain and show that the world could be beautiful, and show that somebody can offer and be enough, right? That there is a way to fill the cup. And I had people in my immediate family that saw the cup constantly half on full.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to always fill that cup, right? And being a people pleaser and an enabler and living with narcissists and people with a lot of mental health issues, I wanted to always be able to figure out a way to be able to say, oh no, but I'll love you enough, and I'll show you that I can be good enough. And unfortunately we can't. But when you're younger and you don't know that yet, you strive for it. And I wanted to find a way to be able to let people know that they're enough, and that they for themselves can be enough, and that no, we can never be that for other people. But that if we focus on our own wellness and focus on our own happiness, that we can heal ourselves, and that when we live our own best lives, that we all actually create a union of energy that actually does create a ripple effect in the world. And we have that happen at Atlas every day. And when I was teaching, I remember saying to my staff, listen, when we're in this bubble of our classroom, we can't impact and control what happens everywhere else in the school. We can't impact what happens in the city. We can't impact global education necessarily, unless you're going into politics and you want to be, you gotta know the enemy to change the enemy, right?
Yeah.
However, we can set an example, and we can choose to be happy, and we can choose to make our kids as happy as we can for the time we have them. And if the students' parents are not knowing that their kids have a certain capacity of learning,
Mm-hmm.
they can know that we believe in them, and they can start to see that their kids are feeling happy and start seeing progress notes and start to see that their kids are coming home happy from school. And we can start sending them pictures, and we can start sending them video. And then maybe they're going to be willing to come in, and we can do that together with them. And maybe they start trying it on their own, and maybe they don't. But no matter what, that kid gets the experience themselves of seeing somebody feel good and loving up on them. And that makes a change. And that's enough. And that does something. And that really is, for me, a love mission that has been working, and I'm sticking with it, and I'm bringing that out to the community beyond our school. I sit on multiple boards, and I get the chance to collaborate with other schools, that I'm not directly working with. And it's been amazing to see other schools who some might say, oh, but that's competition. Why would you go and connect with them? Well, no, because it's not competition. We can't serve everybody alone. And that feels really good to be able to say, it's like that expression, a true queen can fix the crown of another queen without worry that it's going to take away from their own beauty.
Do you feel in some ways that who you are, who you've become, what you've made of your life, what you've made of your mission, is in some ways making yourself the person you needed as you were coming up?
Yes. I sometimes think when I get a little tired or feel a little weak or a little less than, that being stronger now and holding on to, as you say, this love mission and instilling that confidence and supporting other people is actually in some way helping the young lady that I was, the weaker, you're not the weaker person, but the persons that I was as I was surviving some of the more challenging periods of my life, actually is still empowering her to get through, and whispering in my dreams or whispering to her, you're going to get through this, and almost kind of cheerleading me on in those times, and honoring her in a way, and that if I don't embrace this time now, that it would do her a disservice, because all of the effort that went in to learning from those challenges, got me to this point. And love doesn't come easy. I think that we often romanticize love,
Mm-hmm.
but if you think about a good cry, right? Disney makes cries very pretty,
Mm-hmm.
but
Real
if you've ever
crying is
been, if you
ugly.
crying is ugly, but you know what? Love is ugly, you know. But it's beautiful, right? And I think that's really the truth of it, right? Really good times are awkward and funky, but those bumps in the road, those truths, that's love, right? Holding each other up. It's funny, you know, as this virus, you know, circumstances unfolding, our school is going to remote learning. My technological savvy is less than, right? But my leadership savvy, I believe in, and I have an incredible team that I was able to call on. And as we're Googling into the land of Google Classroom and Google Drive and Google Forms and everything else, right? In a very short period of time, I was talking with our school psychologists and our program supervisors and trying to get things ready to be able to rally up our team, to get ready to rally up our parents, to be able to get ready to get our staff ready, to get ready to tell the lawyers and everybody else in how to prepare for this devastating reality of, no, we're not going to be going on the buses and going to school next week, right? I had to say, I don't know how to do this, but I need to be ready to answer questions and explain things. Can you help me wrap this up? Can you help me be prepared how to explain this? Can you, you know, can you help me how to be able to say, I don't know, and we'll get back to you on this, but still be ready to have certain things available? And how do we still help people feel secure in all of that? And none of it was pretty, but we had to be able to be humble. And I think that humility is also love. And sometimes we want to say that our strength is love, that our togetherness is love. And you have to be able to know sometimes who's smarter, who's faster, who's got it. And I mean, I look back at some of my relationships, my exes, even some who I'm very close with and who I still rely on. And I know that I can go to them and they can do it better than me in a moment. And I have to step back and not question them sometimes in the immediate, because we need something done fast and efficiently. And I get the explanation later, but in the moment, I need someone to get it done better, faster, quicker, because somebody needs help first. And that's not ego. Ego is not easy to step aside from.
No, it's not. No, it absolutely is not. It's so when you were going through that, two memories came to mind. The first was actually my wedding day, and my best man, or the witness, came to me before the ceremony and said, "I've got a marriage secret for you." He'd been with his wife 26 years. So I got a marriage secret for you. And so I'm waiting for this Yoda-like reveal of great information, like, "Oh, please tell me." And he looks at me as deadpan as he can get, and he goes, "Love your wife." And I went, "Are you kidding me? Like, really? That's something amazing?" He's like, "No, you didn't hear me." I said, "Okay." I said, "Love your wife." And I said, "All right, you're saying something. I'm not sure I'm getting it. Please explain." And he said, "Love is not just a feeling. It's not something you receive. It's not an emotional state. It's an action.
Right.
Love is action."
Yes.
You know, when you go through that wedding vow, that good times and in bad, and sick times and sick times and in health, for richer, for poorer, trust me, you're going to experience both sides of each one of those coins.
Yep.
You know, when you're at the wedding, you're only thinking about the good times. But the reality is, if you stay in love with anyone in any capacity, friendships, children, family, a pet, any type of love relationship over a long period of time is going to require work, because you're not always going to have the uptime, and you're going to find out where your love really is during the downtime.
Right.
And in that work isn't always what you do to show that person, that thing, that community, that whatever love. Sometimes that love is what you do to protect them from the selfish part of you, the ego,
Or themselves, right?
or themselves,
Or themselves.
if they're open to it,
Right.
or themselves if they're open to it. You know, when you're working with some communities, they're more receptive because they may see.
But then you may have to walk away from that too.
You may.
And that's a very difficult thing. I have had to walk away from some of the most important people in my life out of true essence of love for myself, or a sense of love for what love should be, love of faith, love of them, because they're not honoring the love of what family could or should be, or a relationship. Right? What's that song, right? You can't always get what you want, but you try sometime. You just might find you get what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the hardest decisions bring you to a greater sense of what love is. I mean, I think about what friendship used to mean. And when you think about, oh, you know, how many friends do I have? 30 friends, 20 friends, this many friends. And when you think about what makes you friends, right? What you thought about friendship, how many people signed my yearbook, or, you know, who is there for you? You come back to the people in my community. How many people start getting married at the same time? How many people start having children at the same time? And then when people get a diagnosis of autism, some people, it's not that people walk away from them because they have children with autism. It's that it's so painful for them to see neurotypical developing children, and they step away because they can't bear that comparison, and they don't know how to deal with that juxtapositioning, and they don't know what that paired life looks like, and it just naturally starts to kind of fade away, and the comparison changes the dynamic, and they don't know how to still see each other. And you were talking about like those relationships sometimes. How do people stay in love? How do you still love your wife, love your husband, love your partner? Sometimes we don't realize that as time is going by, we don't keep asking each other, not just how are you, but who are you? And even more so, right? No matter how much we think we know ourselves, we're constantly changing.
Oh, yeah.
Our ethics are changing. Our sense of our political party, our integrity party, our sense of philosophy, right? And how we actually live and the decisions that we make. It's like the big chill. What did we actually become versus what did we sit around the Camelot table and talk about what we thought we would become?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how it's a very different thing to sit and look at that mirror.
Well, so let me ask you this, and your example of the friends that come up together, they get married at the same time, they have kids at the same time, and then someone has a child that it's an autism diagnosis, and suddenly, because of that juxtaposition, because of the pain of that comparison, there's this schism, and the autistic the parent of the autistic child goes one way, the parent of the neurotypical children go another way. They're now as the parent, they're now having to kind of re-identify and redefine themselves. So
Yes.
if it sounds, and I could be wrong, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is it sounds like they have their own search for balance, for
Yes.
connection, for community, for, you know, to be understood, because
Yes.
their social group of the past, their social clique of the past, with, you know, their neurotypical children, don't understand what their reality is.
And this is where the neurodiversity movement comes in, the question of inclusion, you know, the question of balance really comes in. Sibling relationships, and really it's such a unique blend of demographics, community. You know, it's also the difference between, you know, autism awareness and autism acceptance, right? Some people look at April and they say, oh, I'm gonna be a buddy, I'm gonna put a autism puzzle piece on my shirt, I'm
Mhm.
gonna go to a local school and I'm gonna volunteer for a couple of days during the month, and I'm gonna feel so good about myself, and then the rest of the year goes by and nobody even remembers what it means, right?
Mhm.
You know, what is it to actually just have somebody be a friend, or to look at neurodiversity and different ways of communicating with people with communicative differences? How do people go and deal with neurodiversity at the local playgrounds? How do we have more sensory sensitivity at local playgrounds and restaurants? You know, more and more places are having autism friendly and sensory friendly events. Great Adventure, Sesame Place, different restaurants are starting to have different things. Broadway is having dimmed lighting and headphones available, things like that. But I think it's also just people being kinder and more aware, people being less judgmental when they're at a grocery store and someone's having a meltdown, right? And that's not just about autism. That's just about love thy neighbor, be a little cooler, get out of each other's hair, and maybe just ask if somebody needs help instead of saying, oh, is that the way that you parent? You know, maybe that's how our love mission needs to evolve.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And when you talk about the creating a standard or creating more of a normalcy in that neurodiversity, so people understand how to get along, how to engage, how to interact, whether that be at a playground or in any environment. I think about the fact that we're seeing different programming in television these days. It's more diverse than it used to be.
Yes.
Think about if I'm not mistaken, Sesame Street added an autistic character, which I thought
Julia. Yes.
was really awesome. And so and pardon the comparison. I'm not making the comparison, but I think back to in the 80s when AIDS and HIV was first coming on board and people were first finding out about that, and everyone had this strange sense of other. Like this thing could only happen to those people, whomever those people were. And depending on who you asked, they had different concepts of what those people were. And then you started, as the 70s and 80s kept going along, you started hearing about more people connected to someone famous or connected to someone.
Right.
And then you started hearing about people who actually were famous and were powerful, like Freddie Mercury, like Magic Johnson. And all of a sudden it stopped being those other people, and it started being, it could be anyone.
Right.
And when people saw it as it could be anyone, it kind of unlocked that empathy that this is not this isn't a scarlet letter situation where we're just going to label them as.
Well, and that's what happens when the numbers shift so intensely. I mean, 10 years ago, we were talking about 1 in 50,000 or 1 in 10,000. Now you're talking about 1 in 50. And this is not just a matter of more people are being tested. This is more people are being diagnosed, more people are having these symptoms, more people are autistic. This is a real circumstance. More people are, severely autistic. More people are nonverbal. More people have apraxia. More people have severe sensory problems and motor planning problems, right? We're not talking about whether or not somebody is a little bit fidgety or has to cut the tags out of their shirts. This is something that, the adult population and how many people will or will not be able to be in the workforce, how many people will or will not be able to independently take care of themselves, right? Now, mind you, there are a lot of highly independent autistics who will be able to adapt and be independent, but there are a lot who will need to be supported. And we have a lot of work to do to be able to adapt as a society. And that's where this acceptance and this adaptability and neurodiversity as a movement really needs to be thought about. I am working with, and I know a lot of people are looking at creating communities. In the past, people thought about just institutions and residential living, and now a lot of people are looking at farming communities. We are looking at creating kind of a kibbutz community living, inclusive environment ourselves. You know, a neurodiverse living opportunity, a university opportunity for respite and emergency housing and further learning opportunities, not just for adults who are classically college ready, but adults who are over 21, but academically still may be first, second, third, fourth grade developmentally. But right now, funding typically is only available for recreational learning or day hab learning. We want to see a movement that goes toward quality of life, happiness, communication, and continuation of academics and things like that as well.
So let me ask this, and I think that mission is excellent, because if with the numbers growing, the way that you were saying, it's certainly something where we as society need to be prepared, because that's a wave unlike we've seen. I mean, and
it's happening now.
I would almost liken it to the baby boomers, where all of a sudden you've got a change in the demographic that is so different than what's been seen before, that it takes entirely different systems to prepare for it, to be able to support it, and to understand that these volumes are not like what we've seen. These behaviors are not like what we've seen.
And the economy has to be ready for it. And parents who are aging into their 50s, 60s, 70s right now are all wondering what is going to happen to their children and where are they going to go. And there are not enough places ready to heed that call.
There was a journey to get you to this level. There was a journey to get you to this understanding. There was a journey that got you to starting your foundation and being on the board, on these different boards, and doing the work that you're doing now from where you were just starting. So let me ask you this. When you started, you mentioned, you started as a TA and then as a teacher, and then, you were inspired to start a nonprofit and become an administrator of a school and the foundation. So you kind of kept moving these levels in your journey and expanding your reach with each new level, because as a TA, there's only so many students that are in your care. As a teacher, maybe more. As an administrator, definitely more. As a foundation, you've got the ability to scope to a much larger audience. As a member of a board, you've got entirely new communities or groups that you're addressing. And I'm sure there are even more ways that we could scale, going to what you were just talking about, where you've got communities, kibbutz style living, farms, university style. There's kind of always a next layer or a next level to it. Talk to me about what makes you want to keep going, because a lot of people go, okay, well, I have to do my TAing, and I want to be a teacher. All right, I'm a teacher. I'm good.
I wonder sometimes, I get tired, I sometimes I wonder why I'm not still, folding t-shirts and putting out baskets of incense in town where, life was simpler and easier, because it's not easy to be led by love or led by destiny and do these kind of higher callings, right? I'll quote Nina Simone. I read her biography not too long ago. Mm-hmm. She talked about her voice, and she sometimes really was frustrated with her voice. She knew it was a gift that she had, but sometimes she wished it was somebody else's. But she knew that she had been bestowed this gift and that there was a mission attached to her life, because she had been given this voice and that she had to use this voice, and that it would be a waste if she didn't use this gift that she had, and she couldn't live with herself if she didn't use that voice and share it out. And until she was kind of satiated and she knew that she was allowed to rest and that she had done what she was set out to do. And I haven't been given that message yet, you know. And so as I kind of keep going through, I know that there's still more to be done, and I know that there's always something along the road that's so fulfilling, and that I see the impact. And when I see that next smile, or I hear that next thank you, and I know that it's lit another person's candle, and I have another staff person who says, hey, you know, I'm applying for school. Will you be a reference for me? And I don't think I would have done it if you hadn't encouraged me. Mm-hmm. And I have a kid who comes in and says, you know, I learned a new letter today. Do you want to hear me say my ABCs? Or a parent who says, my child hugged me for the first time on their own. And you know, you get overwhelmed with those moments that you know got facilitated because of your endurance, and because you wanted to help. You keep on going, and so, you know, the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, and when they were training, I remember they were like, well, maybe we'll get to the Super Bowl. We might as well train like that, because why not us, you know? And when they won the Super Bowl, they said, you know, they were asked about how they won the game. And they said, well, we're going to play the game, and who's to say we won't? Why not us? And they won. And, you know, we go into every day and we say, you know, who's to say that this won't be the greatest day and that the best won't come? And if it doesn't come, at least our kids know that we showed up, and our parents know that we showed up, and we were excited, and we were hopeful with them, and that we, you know, we're excited about the possibility. And that if it was the hardest day, if it was the ugly love day, that somebody was willing to be there for them with that too. Because we all need somebody there in each one of those. And I know, we talked about the journey, and on those days when I was really alone, I really wish there was somebody who had been there. And so on the days where there was, God, I was grateful. I was so grateful. And so if I can be that one person, and my team can be that person, and that we can keep paying it forward, why shouldn't we?
That's a great way of looking at it. That is a fantastic way of looking at it. So,
thank you.
So your gift, your heart for community, your heart for balance and being understood and making that connection, is your Nina Simone's voice. This is the gift that was put in you, that you are going to use and give to the world, and give and give and give and give until you hear that bell, or you get that notice that I've done enough.
Listen, I was born at 6 months old, 2 pounds 2 ounces, and that survival and that opportunity is not lost on me. And the fact that I'm 42 years old And I keep waking up every day with another opportunity to appreciate this very unique experience of life, and know that there are so many amazing opportunities to observe and to sense and to experience and to learn. I like being alive, and I like the good days, and I like even the hard days when they're over and they're done. I know that, you know what? I'm never gonna have the worst day again.
So in talking about your journey, I'm reminded of the image of a pyramid, where the higher up you go, the more of a base there is. So as the higher you go in your journey, whether from student to TA to teacher to nonprofit founder to administrator to board member, the higher you go, the more people that you are able to serve. Both the kids as well as the parents and the broader community. My wonder is in creating this pyramid and creating this kind of umbrella of community that you are able to serve. What are you doing, or what is it you would like to do to empower the next Amanda Friedman?
I mean, I would just say, just start somewhere. Be willing to get out there and try something, fail. I mean, the most important thing is to know that we only learn and start by failing. It's like walking and riding a bike. I mean, they're not cliches, they're facts. Nothing starts and is successful without bumps along the way. We have to practice everything we do. And so, we have to be willing to have mentors and ask for help. And honestly, let me rephrase that. We may not have mentors accessible, because I did not have a lot of people available to start certain things. And I still just wanted to get out there and try things. And there were certain things that I was mocked for and that I just wanted to do no matter what. And eventually, those things got picked up, and whether that be writing, whether that be teaching styles, whether that be anything. You have to keep doing what you believe in, and putting yourself out there, and surviving and being safe, getting yourself to a point where you can find your place, find your niche, and then be heard, and find your market or find your way to be successful, right? But your success does not come from being liked and accepted by everybody, right? It's going to come from something internal, and it's going to come from a different source. And that's a hard lesson. So embracing rejection, understanding that your hardship and your pain is actually a resource, exploring your doubt, exploring your ego, exploring your fear, really looking at those things and knowing that those things are actually going to be your success story at some point. Trusting in your later self. You asked me earlier about my current state and how that connects to myself from years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what a powerful question, actually, Kevin. Thank you for that. It's an interesting introspection. So wherever the next person looking for their love mission is, right, or their sense of self or their sense of future self, right, please don't be afraid of your hardship now. Embrace that. Look at what Malala has been through. Her journey, her impact came from near death. That's a really
It's a great example.
powerful truth, right? An example.
So you mentioned your definition of success and that being an internally generated concept. Success for you is by your own terms.
Yes.
That, while that is absolutely true, and I firmly believe that, I also have a concept of when there is success in love, it's felt. When there's success in love, it's experienced, it's received. It leaves a mark. I've never known anyone who's experienced real love, ugly love, good love, happy love, sad love, long-lasting love, communal love, that was not in some way marked by having that experience. So I'm gonna ask you what's normally our closing question, but I'm gonna ask it to you in two different ways. So the first way, going to your individual definition of success in your love journey, in your love mission. What does success look like for you? When you get that, I'm sated, I've done what I set out to do. What does that success look like to you?
In context to my work, the success of Atlas and what I've created, the success is the fact that it will be able to operate and go on without me. And that took so much work. And I don't believe that actually would have even been true up until very recently. And it still needs some polishing, probably, because it's very hard to let go of what you love sometimes,
Of course.
and what you want to have your hands in so much, probably like good parenting, right? Because you want to be needed, right? It feels good to be needed. It feels good because we often define love by being needed. But when you think about love, it's by giving self-sufficiency to those you love. And so because I love my students and my staff and this beautiful entity of Atlas, I want it to be able to exist whether I'm technically there or not. And so it needs to be viable with or without me. And so I think that is the greatest success in regards to Atlas as an entity. And so
it's kind of pulling on that, if you love something, set it free. In this case, set it free is getting it to self-sufficiency.
yes.
So,
And in my personal life, you know, I would say that, you know, I hope that the people in my life all would feel and know that my love and my care for them has been authentic and honest and true, and that it's been a good and fun ride, you know.
Well, you must be having premonitions because you answered my second question before I asked it.
Oh.
So that's impressive. So there we go. So let me ask you this, Amanda, in terms of, for the folks at home who want to know more about the work that you do, the work that your foundation does, your school, and really just kind of your thoughts, your ideas, and how you contribute to the broader neurodiverse community, how can they get in touch with you? And are there any resources that you would like to share with the folks at home?
Absolutely. So the program is the Atlas Foundation for Autism, www.atlasforautism.org. We're on Facebook. You could look us up on, I believe we have an Instagram account, Twitter. You could always email info@atlasforautism.org. You could, you know, look for us on, you could message on the page here, messaging the comments, you know, where you're posting, you know, message me on my personal page, that's okay too. And
beyond the foundation, are there other avenues that you use that you may want to share with people?
Well, I support Spectrum Warriors, is another nonprofit organization that I sit on the board of. They are a wonderful organization that supports Harlem community, working with the autistic communication and first responders, trying to bridge the gap. There are a lot of racial tensions between first responders and you know, people wondering and being worried about their Black and Brown community and the disability community especially. And you know, a lot of people are afraid to talk about those realities, but we do know that that's still very much an issue. There's a lot of racial profiling, a lot of fear, but people are trying to bridge the gap and talk about those things and educate the community and educate the NYPD about these things, and say that, you know, we want to bring more peace and bring more attention to this, and also to bring more support so people are realizing the difference between somebody who is nonverbal or non-compliant or just needs some extra support. A lot of really great family days and communication supports going on there. And you know, the National Autism Association is doing a lot of great work. And we're always open and available if there are other community organizations wanting to reach out. If there are any ways that we can also do more advocacy work with the autistic advocacy organizations, we are really wanting to bridge those gaps so that we're not just neurotypical support organizations on behalf of the autistic community. We really want to get more autistics working together with us so that we're really using your voices on your behalf. So please let us know how we could do more that way too.
Excellent. One more layer to the pyramid.
Absolutely.
Well, Amanda, thank you so very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and we wish you, your foundation, and your communities all the best in the future. For folks at home, thank you for joining us for today's discussion. There will be more episodes of Faces of Love available to you across a broad spectrum of love missions. In the meantime, stay blessed, stay safe, and we'll talk to you again soon.